This is the Western Obsessions TV podcast, where hunting's not a hobby, it's an obsession. All right, guys, welcome back to the Western Obsessions TV podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Belding, and this podcast is brought to you by Ready Nutrients. Optimize your performance in the gym and the outdoors. Live ready. On this episode, I've got a couple guests on today. One being Darrell Gogert. The other guy is AJ Pozzuoli. I was just joking before the podcast. It sounds like Fazoli's. I love Fazoli's. I wish I was sponsored by Fazoli's. I could eat there all the time. It was AJ Pozzuoli. And these guys started Velvet Antler Technologies. That's their company. It sounds like it's a product. It's actually multiple products, a lot of products that they have got developed right now, and very cool products. We're going to dig into those products and kind of how they got started and kind of everything they got going on. Who knows where this podcast is going to turn out to. But you guys, welcome. Darrell, AJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So Velvet Antler Technologies, and for you guys that are listening, to be honest with you, I've never shot a deer in velvet. I would like to one day. I just, for some reason, I always kind of hedge to I get a rifle tag for try to kill myself a big muley. I would like to one day, and this will be a good podcast for me to learn a lot about velvet, a lot about the process that goes into it and the products. But Darrell, AJ, whoever wants to take this lead, kind of tell me about your main product, how that happened, how it came about, how you started the company. Give me some background.
So it was, I actually kind of created the formulation years ago. I was a guide in Nevada, and I hunted Nevada. That's where I live. And every year I lived 100 miles from any taxidermist. So I hated every time I'd kill a deer, I'd have to try to deal with the velvet, and the velvet would fall off and it would rot and it would stink and the bugs get to it. And it was always just a big mess for me, and I loved the velvet. I just thought it was cool. That's probably around 20 years ago. So I just started kind of playing with stuff and developing stuff and trying to spray stuff on it, right? Mixing stuff together to spray on it to make the velvet stay there. Because I couldn't get to a taxidermist, number one. Number two, I had 3 kids growing up that I couldn't afford to take them to the taxidermist if I could bake them. So I kind of just built this little formula, and I started spraying it on all of my buddies of mine's deer, and the velvet just stayed. And it stayed perfect. I mean, I got one on my wall now that's over 16 years old that the velvet's still just like the day I killed him. So that's kind of where it developed. Like, I never really had a name for it. I never had anything, right? So fast forward about 12 years ago, I moved to Idaho. And it's funny how I met AJ. I was actually selling a set of deer antlers on eBay, and the first guy that bid on them, he never paid for them. The guy wouldn't talk to me. He bid on them and won them, but never would pay for them. Well, AJ was the guy that was bidding against him, right? So I just reached out to him and said, "Hey, man, guy didn't pay. If you're willing to pay." So he ended up buying these antlers, right? Big, there's 217-inch deer, something like that. Big, beautiful set of antlers. So then him and I we got to be friends, and we started talking, and I told him about this stuff that I have, and he got real excited about it like I was, and we started pursuing it and started trying to figure out how we could get it to market and what that looked like and what it would take. And, we worked and worked and worked tirelessly until, what has it been? 4 years now, almost 5 years ago, 2019, I believe it was. We actually brought just the Velvet, we called it when we started, to the market. And that's where we came up with the name Velvet Antler Technologies, right? Just a cool name. And so since then, things have kind of evolved. We've got, like you said, other products as well, but that one was our start. We started with that, and we gave away a lot of product right at first, and people were trying it and they were liking it. And, it's just been blossoming from there. And AJ builds all of our logos and all of our labeling and stuff. He spends a lot of time doing all of that. And then moving forward, we always have guys say, "Hey, you got this product. What about, could you do something for this?" And that's how these products all have evolved over time. Seems like every year we have somebody say, "Hey, you have something, could you do something with this?" And we try to build it. And usually it takes us about a year and a half to do enough beta testing and gathering information and intel on, getting product from people, getting deer heads or hides or what have you from people to test this stuff on. And it takes time to do that. So each one we spend about a year and a half to develop before we put it out on the market.
Yeah, and that's one thing the consumer doesn't see is how much research and development goes into making a good product. Not only the product, but like the design, the labeling, the marketing, everything that goes into it. It's a lot of work to get a product on the shelf and on the website. Let's back up just a little bit, and I'm curious to know more about this. I'm sure a lot of my listeners are too, but let's dig into the problem of what happens when you shoot an animal in velvet, and kind of like the solution of how do you preserve that? How do you keep that there?
Okay, and that's kind of what I figured out over time, right? Like the first thing that happens to any animal when they get killed, anything, is blood coagulates. So a velvet membrane is just like the scalp on your head, right? It has blood flow constant. It doesn't stop. So as soon as that heart stops, the blood stops. Wherever that blood is, and I've even seen it where, you shoot a deer with a bow and arrow and all that blood's trying to coagulate as they're dying, right? So what happens, all those clots they can go up under the velvet membrane. They can end up a lot of places. And this is what makes velvet very, very fickle and very hard to deal with. So in our product, we developed it because the blood, when it's sitting there, right, it starts to decay immediately. Mm-hmm. And especially when velvet season, it's 99.9% of the time it's hot. I don't care where you're at. When you're hunting velvet, it's hot. Yeah. Okay. So decay starts early, starts really fast. So this product is made it'll actually penetrate the membrane and get under the membrane where the blood lives. And it'll re-liquefy that blood and it'll make that blood leave. It'll run it out the bases.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so just like everything that's living, blood flows to it. You die, or an animal dies, blood stops flowing and starts to coagulate. So your product absorbs through the velvet into the membrane, into the blood, and basically pushes the blood out of the velvet. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly? Yeah. I mean, as a layman terms like myself, I'm sure there's a lot more science to it. Yeah, that's super interesting. So tell me now, and me and you may know this, but some of my listeners may not, is like, why is that so important to get that blood out of the velvet in time to preserve that?
What was that? I missed part of that. My silly phone started ringing.
No worries. I said, for someone that may not understand, me and you may understand this a little bit better because we're in the industry, but why is it so important to get the blood out of the velvet and to preserve that? Why is that so important?
Okay, so the blood, when it's sitting under there, even if it's dried, and I tell people this, right? Even if it's freeze dried means just that. All the blood that was there when it died freeze dries underneath that membrane. If that ever gets re-liquefied at some point, somehow, if it gets wet, if it rains on them, if your house has a water leak and you get water on that membrane again, it will reconstitute essentially that blood, right? Because it's still there, it's still in place. If you don't get rid of that blood, that's when decay will happen and rot will happen. And bugs will attract to it. And bacteria will attract to it if it's not completely dried and cured or taken out, one or the other.
Right. Okay. So which is, if you can't get rid of the blood, there's a high chance that velvet's going to get ruined down the road.
Yes.
Yeah. And then so what's left over is the velvet without the blood in it. And how does your product do anything special to preserve that? Because if I had everything loses value over time, right? So unless it's preserved in a way. So tell me about that in that process.
So in getting all that blood out of there, then that product is actually made to preserve that membrane. It will actually turn the membrane as hard as the bone on the antler. So it's an actual hard cured membrane at that point. But the hairs on the animal stay soft and supple. So the actual hair feels just like the day you killed it. It's super soft, super supple, and the membrane underneath is hard and cured to the bone.
Interesting. Super interesting. Like I said, I haven't killed anything with velvet, but if I would have the last couple of years ago, it probably would be ruined. So I didn't know a lot of this information. You know what I mean? I would have killed it. I would have taken my taxidermist and he would have been like, Kurt, what have you been doing the last 6 days? I'm like, I don't know, just piddling my thumbs. You know, probably would have been ruined. So, well, that's great, guys. Go ahead.
One of the things is a lot of guys they use formaldehyde still to this day. Formaldehyde is just nasty. I mean, I know guys that have taken it in the mountains with them and they'll poke their finger with the needle that they're injecting those antlers with, and they'll get a huge infection. And it's not a good substance, right? As to where ours, it's not toxic like that it's going to bother you. I mean, you could spray it directly on your skin. It's not going to burn your skin, those types of things, right? Like if you get formaldehyde in your eye, you will lose your eye. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Huh. So like guys are taking formaldehyde up with them on the mountain as they're hunting in the case that they shoot an animal, or are they able to bring it off the mountain in time to put the formaldehyde in there?
Yeah, most of the time guys do it on the mountain that are, guys that truly backpack in and stuff. A lot of guys like our product, if you're, as long as you apply it within 24 hours of killing that animal, you're usually in pretty good shape.
So it'd be smart to bring your product with you in your pack up the mountain. That way you can do it right away.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some do's and don'ts of preserving velvet besides using your product, obviously?
So the only thing. One of the big things we like to stress to people is do not grab a hold of that velvet. I know guys like to take pictures and they hold the base of the antler, and every time you squeeze on that and push on that, you're actually compromising the velvet in that spot. You'll damage the membrane itself, because it's essentially bruising, just like your hand, right? If a person dies and you squeeze any part of that tissue, it will bruise still there, because it breaks down the blood vessels and everything that aren't flowing blood anymore. So it makes it a little bit harder to cure at those points. So it mats the hair down when you're holding it, and it's hard to get that hair to stand back up and stay fluffy like it was. So that's one of the real big don'ts, right? You don't want to do that. With our product, you want to keep the antler tips in the air, the bases to the ground, so that obviously the tips are the smallest portion, right? The bases are the biggest. So the tips are going to cure out first, and it's essentially going to push that blood out the bases as it cures.
Yeah. So, I mean, the gist of it is don't touch the velvet. Hands off the velvet.
At some point, right? But you want to be as gentle with it as possible. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's say I kill a deer, it's in velvet. I have your product up with me, skin it out, take care of the meats, put it in. Obviously, I'm putting the meats in game bags, and I'm thinking about packing out the animal, spraying down the velvet. How long should I let that sit for a certain amount of time before I grab that head and try to hike that off the mountain?
No, it doesn't matter really. Just like I said, you want to be as gentle with that velvet as possible. And what's funny is we actually built our trophy head harness. I don't know if you've seen that, our trophy head hauler.
I have.
So
yes.
we actually originally to start so you could carry your velvet on your backpack. And it just holds the head, right? Instead of tying ropes and stuff to those antlers and pulling on that velvet and peeling that velvet off as you travel with it.
Yep. And that's a great business move, adding one product onto the other, knowing that there is a demand and there's a problem, right? So kill an animal, all right, we got the spray to preserve the velvet, but now we got a problem of like, how do we get it off the mountain without damaging this velvet? And we're talking about more backpacking hunts, but when I'm thinking about velvet, I'm thinking about mule deer hunts, archer mule deer hunts. Typically, that's going to be in high country. because you're usually up high in the summer. So that's kind of the gist of it, right? Like what other velvet animals are we talking about that we can use this on?
Now you got me started.
That's what happens on these podcasts.
We got axis deer.
Oh
Those
yeah.
are for the world now. Hawaii, Texas, they kill a lot of them in Texas. And the neat thing about axis deer is they can be in velvet any time of the year. You can be hunting axis deer and there's one in velvet and one hardhorn at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just they're just kind of a different animal. You got roe deer over in Europe. We're just starting to work with some of those guys. You got a whole bunch of different. I think there's 6 different deer in Australia that all come in velvet.
Okay.
New Zealand, red stag, elk, whitetail. We're finding out even like in South America, they have coastal whitetails there that the guys are killing velvet coastal whitetails.
Oh, no kidding.
South America. Right. So, I mean, we start, everybody goes, you guys start this business, it's just a limited little thing here in the Western United States. And now we got people, we had a taxidermist that just ordered a bunch of product from Great Britain. So, so they got stuff everywhere that people, start thinking outside the box. There's actually hunting all over the world that they kill velvet animals all the time.
Yeah.
Or the potential, because there was a lot of that where they wouldn't intentionally shoot something in velvet because they didn't know how to preserve the velvet or how to take care of it. So now that we have come to the market with our product, we're finding more and more people are reaching out to us saying, well, we technically could shoot them in velvet, but we never have because we don't know how to deal with it and no one here knows what to do with it. So and one
away from it.
Yeah, they were staying away from it. And one of the big business segments for us that we kind of skipped over a little bit was all of our northern hunts. So Canada and Alaska, right? You've got velvet bull, moose, you've got caribou, and we ship a lot of product up north. And that's the big thing is people spend a lot of money to go, hire bush planes, go way back and drop in the backcountry. They're going up there to shoot those big giant, either caribou or reindeer, depending on where you're at. In some of those big velvet bull moose. And the concern is, you can imagine, you're way back up at there in Alaska or Canada. You got to load this precious velvet onto a bush plane and fly a bush plane out, then package it, send it home. And by the time you get that home, most of that velvet's either or completely destroyed because it's been rubbed on a cooler, a suitcase, a box, whatever it might be. And so we found, kind of unintentionally, one of our large business segments during that time of the year, we're shipping gallons and gallons of product up to either hotels, rental car agencies, guiding outfits. So they have everything they need right there, where if they shoot 1 or 2 velvet caribou, they apply it right there, either at base camp or in the field. And by the time, let's say there's a party of a couple hunters like Darrell, myself, and a couple other people go up and go hunt, and I harvest a velvet caribou day 1, and we're up there for 7 days. Hypothetically speaking, by the time I apply my velvet lock, by the end of our trip, that velvet will be fully preserved and ready to go home.
Yeah. And then, so, I mean, obviously you're still going to take the necessary steps for care for the flight home or the ride home, wherever you're doing, but now is like that protection level is increased quite a bit.
And you still, again, even like these behind me, when they're fully preserved, yes, you can go and tug on the velvet membrane, you can rub them and clean them. But again, it's still a precious material, even after it's preserved. That, you want to keep it away from certain elements like flame or excess heat, animals that chew, mice, those types of things. But yeah, that velvet tissue will be fully preserved. And the other thing to consider here that's been a big selling point for us and things that we didn't think about when we started this was 1 12-ounce, hypothetically speaking, like, with the product, 1 bottle of product weighs, give or take, 12 ounces up to a gallon, and you're talking about trying to pack in something dangerous like formaldehyde or, trying to find a local freeze dryer, trying to do all that stuff. It's just, we come to find that a lot of our customers wish they typically will say, well, I wish I would have heard of your product last year before I went on my caribou hunt because I lost all the velvet and he was a giant bull. So, we've kind of unintentionally found there's multiple segments within the market where our product is being used. Again, we kind of developed it literally as a backcountry DIY style guide or hunter like Darrell and I, and a good bulk of our sales go to, fully established taxidermists.
Well,
Because
that's
back in their only other option was they inject it with, you take it to a taxidermist. He injects it with formaldehyde, assuming he knows what he's doing, or he either owns a large freeze drying freezer, or he outsources it to a freeze dryer, which can take, up to a year and is extremely costly. So now our customers of ours that are professional taxidermists that have these big walk-in freezers, they'll take in anywhere from a dozen to a couple dozen velvet heads a year. Once they're done accepting all their velvet, they could hypothetically in one day pull all of their velvet heads out, lay them all out on the ground, take a gallon of our product in one of those commercial grade pump sprayers like you would get at Home Depot, and literally just pressurize the system and walk down and spray every single one of them, let them, sit out for 72 hours plus, depending on the weather and the humidity in the air and that type of stuff. And we just saved him, we increased his revenue, increased his efficiency, and decreased his downtime to where he can turn around as soon as he gets that cape back, throw that head on there, and off he goes.
Yeah. And I was about to say that I work with a taxidermist here locally here in Denver, and I was in his shop the other day, and he was doing some things to these velvet antlers that like did not get preserved well, all beat to crap. And he was painting them in a way that made it look like it was freshly rubbed off in blood. And man, if they just either they used your product in the field, or if he was using your product, it would have saved that like creative solution of like, well, I guess we'll do the best we can with these screwed up velvet antlers now.
Correct.
Yeah.
The other beautiful product too is so you get a deer that's half in and half out of velvet, which I have one up here on the log. You want to see. It's actually a whitetail, but this is where a taxidermist, if you take that deer to a taxidermist, he's going to scrape it off,
right?
Because they can't inject them. Until our product came along, a deer like that, you can't inject that because the stuff won't go anywhere. It'll just fall out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now with the product, you can spray it on there and it'll cure it exactly the way you killed it.
That's cool. That's preserving exactly the way you killed it, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of people love that look, right? You book kind of a lifetime and you harvest a caribou that's half shredded. You want to preserve it that way and remember it exactly how you walked up on it. So
yeah,
we call those the Medusa mounts, and they're absolutely awesome because, again, you can tug on that velvet. It's nice and supple, on the hair side, but nice and hard, almost like a really, really old piece of leather on the backside. But again, you get to keep it the way you found it.
I'll show you real quick, Kurt. This is the membrane. My son killed this buck when he was 12 with his bow, and it was perfect. But when he rolled down the hill, he peeled that membrane, and that is how hard that membrane turns.
Oh yeah.
See, here's another.
How long have you had that buck?
This is 12 years old, this velvet. And that one I killed 10 days before that one. And they're both 12 years old.
Beautiful bucks.
But that's, like I say, so people understand what it really does to the membrane. That's how hard it will make the membrane.
Yeah. That's a great product, guys. Like, and obviously that was like let me correct me if I'm wrong. That was the product that brought you to market. That was like your first product, right?
Right. Correct. Right. So we moving forward, I guess, to the next one, so we don't kill all of our time on one. Somebody just asked us, they said, man, do you guys have anything that cleans mounts? So I'm like, well, heck, let's look into this a little bit, right? So then we started diving in and figuring out that more and more people this day and age, we're seeing bug infestations in our mounts, right? It's more common than it ever has been. And the reason for that is up until 15 years ago, they used to use arsenic in tanning solutions. So that arsenic, the bugs, it penetrate into the actual hide of the animal, right? And those bugs, they don't like it. You use a lot of old mounts that have never been cleaned, and they still have all their hair. But now we're starting to see a lot of people in the last 10 to 15 years that are getting mounts done. They're starting to lose hair. And if they're losing hair, they more than likely have a bug in them. And that bug chews on the keratin of the hair, of the hair follicle. We created our Trophy Clean product to be able to spray on a mount. It dissolves and gets rid of dust and dirt. The oils that'll build up over time on on ducks and birds and things, that gets sticky and it's real hard to clean. So that Trophy Clean will dissolve that and you can wipe it away. The product comes with a towel and a brush in it, so everybody has what they need when they purchase it. And you take that brush and brush it into the hide itself, into the hair, to get it down to the hide surface. So there's a pin brush that you want to push it down. Some people say, "Oh, I just use a bug balm," right? But a bug can hide from a bug balm. Unless that stuff, they actually get it on them, it's not going to kill them. So that's where this product, when you brush it in, and see, it comes with this kind of a brush.
Yeah.
So with the pins, you brush it into that hair and it carries that product down to the hide surface where they live. So that's really important about taking care of your animals that a lot of people don't understand. I use Pledge. I get that a lot. I said, well, Pledge doesn't do anything for you but make them look pretty.
Right. Give you some shine.
So what our product's doing is you're doing two things, right? You're cleaning, you're conditioning, and you're taking care of that bug problem. If you do that every 4 to 6 months, you shouldn't have any problem with bugs. Not to say that they're not going to, disclaimer, right? Don't spray it on there and say, "Oh, well, now I got bugs." I mean, there's always a possibility. It depends on how it's applied, who applied it, where it was applied, what kind of animal, all those things play into it, right? African animals are real bad because they all have true horn, and around that horn there's tons of keratin, and those bugs love that keratin. So people saturate real good, around the base of those horns, and it'll kill larvae, it'll kill the bugs that are in there, and it should keep them from coming back up to 6 months at a time.
Yeah, that's good. You got me. Now I'm thinking, I know what I'm going to be buying here in the next week. So that's two products. Obviously, I don't want to just skip over that product, but I know you've got more down the line
Yep.
too. What's the
So the
couple other products you guys got?
came up with same thing. It was out of necessity, right? Doyle Moss, I always throw Doyle out because he's a good dude, but Doyle come to us and said, "Hey, you guys got this velvet stuff figured out for the backcountry. What about hides? Because if you could figure out how to keep the hair from slipping on a hide, man, you could save our butts, because these guys back in, they got a hide back there, they've taped it off. Now what? Either you're packing 25 pounds of salt with you, right? Or we do something else." So there, in turn, we took about a year, we tested it, we did a lot of things, and we created a hide lock product. It's called that other deer that I showed you with the velvet falling off. That hide spent 10 days in a plastic bag at 90 degrees in the back of my pickup, unrefrigerated. And he never lost any hair out of it.
And you sprayed that down. And did you do that on purpose? You leave in the back of your truck on purpose?
I did two of them at the same time. Left them in the back of my truck for 10 days in Maryland. So I killed it in Maryland, and I drove all the way down through the Carolinas and through Mississippi, Arkansas. Took me 10 days. And then after 10 days, I decided I'd ship it to my taxidermist. My taxidermist got it, and he goes, "Man, this thing's just like the day you killed it. I can't believe you left it in your truck for 10 days.
That's great. And well, yeah, and I've definitely had iffy situations where I couldn't get the hide back and get it frozen or get it cold, and I'm worried about it being in the backcountry or whatever I'm doing. So 3 great products.
Even if a guy's going to freeze it, right? Because the freeze thaw process, sometimes they don't freeze fast enough, so they start to decay. Then when they go to defrost them, they don't defrost fast enough, so the outside starts to decay as they're defrosting. So if the hide lock is applied before you freeze it, as it thaws, there's no decay anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just a really good insurance hide.
Yeah. All right. So
yeah, and I think it's important to know it. I go back to the Alaska Canadian guys, the guys that hire a bush plane and go back in there, and they want to keep that once in a lifetime cape off their caribou or their bull moose or their bear or whatever it is. Darrell mentioned it, but that 1 12-ounce bottle replaces 25 pounds of salt. So when you're talking ultralight, you're talking backpack hunting, you're talking, cargo weight, man, 25 pounds of salt, that's a lot to give up if you're limited at 1,000 pounds or whatever it is. You're going to swap out 25 pounds for 12 ounces, that would allow you to take that much more, either gear or, food, safety equipment, shelter, whatever it might be, to where you can live a little more comfortably out there with the peace of mind that, if you're hunting velvet, the velvet will be taken care of with velvet lock. If you're not hunting velvet, or if you are too, take hide lock with you, replace that 25 pounds, and be able to come home with that once in a lifetime bear or caribou or whatever it is, and not have to stress about, man, the bush plane's not coming for 4 more days. How am I going to keep this cold? A lot of guys have the misconception, and I've heard guys who are successful with it. Other guys not so much, but they'll put the hide in a garbage bag and put it in a creek. Well, again, think about when you cape something out, naturally there's bacteria in the air, there's bacteria on your hands, there's bacteria. You roll that up and put it in there, you think that you're fully protected having that in a nice cold river. But the truth of it is, especially when you're talking, they retain so much heat. If there's bacteria in the center of that, you roll that hide up and put it in a garbage bag, there's a misconception that hide is going to be good when you take it out because it was kept cold. When the truth of it is, that bacteria is thriving in there, because you think about how warm a bear hide is with any excess fat or tissue, and you're going to be really disappointed when you get that thing out and realize you have hair falling out by the handful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done that before. I've stuck shit in the river thinking, let's keep it cold. And this is the worst case scenario, is because everything gets all waterlogged and nasty and in there anyway. Even if it is a garbage bag, you can't keep the water out. You try, but you can't.
No, and water.
Yeah. There's always water always gets in somehow. So yeah, another great product. So that spun you into the third product. What was the next one you spun into?
So kind of in between there, I guess, we had our stain scrub. So it's a enzymatic blood and stain remover. Removes blood out of hides, backpacks, clothing. Works great on antelope, stone sheep, those kind of things where you can't get that blood out without, because you can't use bleach on them and it stains them real bad. And so we built that one and brought that one out. There's not a ton to say about that one, other than it takes out blood out of everything. It will dissolve blood, old blood. Obviously, if it's been washed or it's gone to the tannery already and came back, that blood pretty set in at that point. It's tough to get out. But if you'll do it beforehand. We got one taxidermist out in the Midwest that he uses it religiously. He sprays every single hide, rubs it in before it goes to the tannery. The first thing the tannery does is wash them when they get them. He said they come back just shiny and clean, and he said they're beautiful. It's just another quick spray down of one of our products before it goes into the processing portion that ends up turning out really, really good.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna get you guys connected with my taxidermist here in town if you're not already connected with them. I think
What's his name?
Adventure Wildlife Studio here in Denver.
So yeah, we'd like to talk to them.
Yeah, definitely gonna get you guys connected because I think you guys can do some great stuff. Which is, yeah, again, another need, and you guys are filling in another need to preserve a trophy, man. That's great.
So then we'll move on one more. So it's funny, we were talking to the guys from New Zealand, and in New Zealand, they do a lot of European mounts, the guys that hunt there. That's just what they like, European mounts there. And he says, man, we can't get a hold of products to do any European mounts. It's just like, and they cost $300 to $500 a piece to do them, for a taxidermist to do them. He says, we'd like to be able to do them ourselves. So we played around and tried to figure out, what can we do for these guys? And so we ended up, same thing, testing for about a year and playing with products and sending stuff to people and trying it. And so we created actually a spray-on degreaser and a spray-on whitener for doing European skulls. So you can either do a fresh skull, right? Spray the degreaser and stuff on there, spray the whitener on there. They turn out really good. I actually just did a bull elk for a friend of mine the other day. But the beauty of it is, and you probably know this, you've probably seen it, you get skulls on the wall over a certain period of time, they start to yellow, right? That's the natural oils coming out of the bone. And I've heard this a million times. I have taxidermists tell me, you are not getting all the oil out, you're not getting all the grease out. And I don't know that I've ever seen a taxidermist, and I'll probably be corrected on this one. I don't know if I've ever seen one that can get all the grease out of the bone. It's just almost virtually impossible, right? Unless you boil the bones down, they fall apart, and you put them all back together. There's gonna be some grease left in that bone at some point. So old skull that's on the wall, you can't take it off the wall and re-simmer it, reboil it, whatever you want to call it, to get that grease to come back out of it, right? Because the bones will fall.
Turn to chalk.
They'll turn to chalk. They'll turn to nothing on you. So that's where ours, you can spray that degreaser on it. Then you spray your whitener on it. There's a process, and it will re-whiten an old skull that's on the wall as well as doing new skulls. So you got your stuff that you can keep clean and fresh on the wall, looking good.
Oh, so it does both. It does preempt it, or like you can do it to whiten and degrease the skull as you're doing the Euro, but then you can also freshen up an old Euro that's maybe turning yellow and some oils coming up. Interesting. That's nice.
Or the other thing too is we've had guys that have been out, shed hunting, or they've been out hunting and find a cool skull, like a bear skull or a coyote skull, and they think it's cool and they want to keep it. So, you get a skull that's been laying out there for a year or two. They've been picked clean naturally by the bugs. They have some natural staining and brown depending on what they were in. It's a great alternative to where you don't have to pay a Euro guy to go do it for you. You can just take this kit, super simple, spray on. Comes with 2 brushes, towel, gloves, everything you need. We sell them individual by the bottle, so you could buy either just the degreaser or the whitener. We do sell it in a kit, and our kit actually comes with, or an option for our kit, we actually have our own skull hangers as well.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on your site, your skull hangers. That's another great point, is preserving for the shed hunters that find a deadhead. That's another good point.
Yep.
And I've done,
we had people about our skull hangers, and I tell them all the time, we're not in the skull hanging industry or the business to compete with some of those big name, super fancy articulating ball head type things. They're great products and I love them, but ours is simply just to add another repertoire in there to where, if someone wants to, let's say their son shoots a little deer, or they find a deadhead deer or something, and they don't want to go out and spend that kind of money, they're getting a one-stop shop in our kit, right? Like they get everything they need, from the degreaser all the way to getting it hung on the wall. Awesome hammered steel look, extremely tough. It holds up to about 30 pounds.
Yeah.
30 pounds. So, it's not going to do a giant bull if you got a giant Euro bull up on the wall, or bull moose or anything like that. It's not meant for that. But if you've got, I would say anything, a smaller elk all the way down to your coyote. We've got a coyote hanging over here on one as well. And they're just a great, easy to use product.
Yeah, and I've done a few Euros myself, and I don't think I want to anymore. It's just so much work and it's so messy, man. And I suck at it. So, but with some, I'd say with a couple products that would help that process, I think it'd make things a lot easier. And and I got a couple heads sitting around I haven't done any skull hangers with. And I saw that on your website too. So we're definitely have to talk after this podcast. I might be going broke, guys. I might be like spending all my money with these guys right here. But moving on, man, does that kind of cover pretty much your?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't think
one
so.
of our biggest ones we actually just launched in January, and this thing actually took the world by storm, I would say. It went crazy.
Okay.
So the same thing, we had taxidermists reaching out to us all the time. Is it, man, do you have an easier way to do turkey fans?
Feet, wings,
those kinds of things, right? Because the borax and salt thing, that's what people have always relied on, right? And this actually goes even further than that, because I've had a lot of people that like to do grouse, because those cool grouse tails. But grouse tails are real hard to do because the feathers are so small and they're so hard to get cleaned and make sure that there's not going to be any bugs in it, right? So we started playing with stuff there again, and we came up with fan lock. So fan lock will actually cure a turkey tail in 5 days.
All right, I'm listening.
I did pheasant tail, and you can kind of see the base of that pheasant tail. Same thing, right? Real small. I didn't have to clean anything. I just cut it off, cleaned off the big pieces of meat, and I sprayed it on there. Pinned this pheasant tail out. You don't see pheasant tails like this, right? But probably a lot of people would like to have a hail, but they're just such a pain to deal with, and the taxidermists don't want to deal with. You could just simply pin this out, spray it once a day for 5 days, and it's done forever for you.
I think that's cool. Yeah, I did the
So
same
yeah,
thing. My daughter killed a turkey.
what's that?
So my daughter killed a turkey a couple of years ago, and I fanned it out for her. But I did the whole borax and salt and that type of curing, and it was a process, man. And got to get all the meat off, make sure everything's perfect. But yeah, if all I had to do was spray it once a day for 5 days, that'd have been a lot easier.
Well, it also too, aside from spraying just the base there, or if you spray it all, sometimes a lot of these birds will get mites and things in them.
Right.
And so that will also help eradicate all the bugs. You don't have to worry about a bug infestation. It'll keep the flies away, so you don't have to worry about any type of, maggots or larvae or anything like that on there. Super easy. Can be used on the wings of any bird, but I'll speak to a turkey. Turkey wings, turkey fan, the beard, the feet. So we have people that like to preserve the feet, right? Whether they're natural looking, the way they kind of hang there, or they'll spread them out on the ground, and you can either inject it under the toes, or you can spray it down in the knee and the tendon, and it'll preserve those turkey feet just like that.
Dang. Is there a problem that you guys haven't figured out a solution to yet in this field?
We've actually had people ask us about doing stuff kind of like the liquid game bag type of thing,
Peppered liquid game bag, but then you still have to put it in a game bag to protect it from dirt and contaminants. We get a lot of kind of really weird requests. Like, we've had people that have asked about our stain scrub because it works so well. If you're a Sitka, Kuiu, any of those big name brands out there, you spend thousands and thousands on camo and they get stained and dirty and whatnot. And so people love it because they can, after a season, they can spray down or after a hunt, depending on how it is, they can spray down all their camo, their bags. You put them in, you spray them. It's kind of a gelatinous, almost like a dish soap feel. Spray it on there, kind of rub it in, let it sit, and what it does. So it's great because you can throw all stuff in the tub, fill the tub up, quarter to halfway with warm water. You don't need any soap other than our product, and then you're good to go. So we've actually had people reach out to us and ask if we could make deodorant, if we could make laundry soap. Honestly, it's kind of comical, some of the requests we get, but some of them are great ideas. Really, like some of them are like, wow, that's would add to our list of successful products, and that actually makes sense. So our whole thing is, our goal is, what we work to do all the time is, we are trying to be a one-stop shop for everything from the field to the wall to the table, if you will.
Yeah, you guys have to change.
We've been asking about butchering kit, everything.
You're gonna have to change the name of your company to like We Do Everything.
So we're gonna just shorten it up to VAT.
Yeah.
So that people, because a lot of people see Velvet Antler Technologies, they shy away because they don't have velvet. You know what I mean? So, but I'm kind of partial to Velvet Technologies. It was kind of my baby way back when, and I said, let's roll with VAT and just see what happens. Like all of our signage and our T-shirts and our hats, that we're changing just to that small acronym, just like a lot of people do, right? PSE and a lot of others like that. So yeah, so if people are looking for us, that's where we're going to start pushing towards, is that VAT acronym.
Yeah, I like that can evolve into a kind of a whole brand of its own, rather than, because that's when people think, they hear Velvet Antler Technology, oh, it's a velvet spray that preserves velvet, and they don't go much more further than that in their mind, right? So VAT, that could evolve into everything. I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Well, guys, you got anything new in the pipeline that you're working on? I mean, don't share too much. We don't want someone to like knock it off or something.
We're always thinking about things. Like I said, we're always getting ideas, and you kind of got to keep broadening your horizons and building your portfolio, so we always got a few things we're playing with and working on.
Yeah, that's great. Any other product that we missed that you want to talk about?
No, just
I don't
want
think
to,
so.
you know, anyone that has ordered from us or continues to or supported us, just want to say thank you. It's been, you know, we started as literally a little mom and pop shop out of our garage, weekend warrior side hustle that has turned into a full-time profession for us. And we have three other full-time employees and some sales reps out there, and we travel around and do all the big name shows and stuff. And so honestly, it wouldn't be possible without every one of you and our supportive wives and family. And we just appreciate people, you know, opening their eyes and their hearts to new things in the industry, because I know sometimes it's, you know, this industry can be very tough to be a part of and be successful in, because it is hard to get into, and it's kind of a certain brotherhood, if you will, that they're not always welcoming to new people. But we just thank everyone that's kind of given us help along the way and insight and mentorship.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like you guys are doing great, and it's kind of the dream is do something you love and be able to do it full time.
Yeah, and it's funny, it's kind of cool though. I mean, so we do all the bottling, labeling, everything, right? I live on an acre and we have a shop, and every bottle that goes out of here gets touched by one of our guys. It's not, we don't have this big manufacturing facility that puts it all together and we just throw it out to people. These things are all hand bottled, hand labeled. Every cap gets screwed on by hand right now. That's just the way it is, and it's the way you got to build a business.
Yeah. Well, hopefully soon you can have a manufacturing company doing that for you and free up
Yeah.
your time a little bit to continue to do some research and development and increase sales.
It's, you know, it also is worth mentioning too, those of you that follow us on social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you know, through our VAT newsletter, whatnot, you know, every time you guys reach out to us, you get either Darrell or myself to answer your questions or phone calls. So our phone numbers are available. You'll most likely talk to Darrell because his number is the primary on the website. If you go through social media, it'll most likely be me. But that's one thing I like to point out to people is you have two co-owners and a founder that is here to answer your questions personally and make sure your customer service is the number one priority to us. We didn't start this business to make money. Truly, we started this business to solve problems for people like us that love to hunt and are passionate about our trophies. So, you know, again, we put customer service as our number one thing, and there's numerous testimonials out there and people that were blown away by our customer service if they had a mishap with shipping, or we had guys that went to Alaska that their shipment got lost and we had to overnight it. We ate the cost of the shipping. Like, we just truly care about our customers because we understand that you guys are the lifeblood of our company.
And that's what a good company does. So it sounds like you guys are running a good ship there, and it's nice to be able to like reach out and not get a bot or a customer service rep in India, and you actually can talk straight to the owner. That's pretty nice. Yeah. Well, guys, I'm going to link link their website, and I'll probably display as I'm putting this together. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, I'll just be displaying some of these products on the screen that we're talking about. And any closing remarks, guys, besides that beautiful statement just said by AJ?
No, man, we just appreciate you having us on there, and we just truly want to educate people on what we do and why we do it. And if anybody has any questions about anything, feel free to give us a call. Be glad to answer any questions and help people through the process, man. If somebody's, we've had this before, people say, man, I don't think things are going right, and they call me and we walk them through those processes. And I mean, I don't think there's a problem with Velvet that hasn't happened that we don't know about, right? Honestly, with Velvet, we've had guys bring elk to us that are 5 days in the back of a truck full of maggots, and we were able to save the Velvet on them. So I mean, we've seen everything there is to see with the Velvet, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys. This is the Western Obsessions TV podcast. You guys are talking to the VAT guys. I'll link everything up. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
This is the Western Obsessions TV podcast, where hunting's not a hobby, it's an obsession.